We should kill them.
Wait. Why do we need to kill them?
Because they're evil.
Have they committed any crimes?
What do you mean have they committed any crimes? They're evil. We should kill them.
But they haven't broken any laws that we know about. They haven't hurt anybody that we know about. Why would we attack them?
What don't you understand about this?
Well, what if the Innkeeper's evil?
Huh? What?
Well, what if the Innkeeper's evil? I mean, it's not like he's going to murder us. I mean, maybe he charges too much for drinks. Maybe he asks for inappropriate favors from the serving girls. It's not like he's going to murder you in your sleep just because he's evil.
Where is this coming from?
You don't just murder people because they're evil. You can punish them when they commit a crime, but you don't just kill people.
But evil is evil, right?
I think this demonstrates a great deal why we don't use the alignment axis in role-playing games anymore. It is a much more nuanced game that we tend to look at nowadays. Now, I'll go ahead and do a quick aside here. The alignment axis is a 9-space grid. It's a 3x3 grid where you have good, neutral, evil, and you have lawful, neutral, and chaotic. It used to be assumed so cut and dry that if that person is evil, then they're aligned with demons, they need to be gotten rid of. But what if they haven't committed any crimes? What if they just tend towards one way or another and they haven't actually done anything? Do you still attack them? Well, I think that many of you from this example might agree with me that we don't just attack them. But there are a few more reasons why the alignment axis has fallen out of favor. Previously, it was true that you had to abide by certain alignment restrictions in order to retain the class features in your class. You could not, for example, be a paladin unless you were lawful good. And a lot of players started to chafe under these restrictions, and they wanted the freedom to have those class features without actually following the behavior restrictions that those classes previously had. In many cases, this makes a lot of sense, but in the case of the cleric, where you had to be the same alignment as your deity, it really doesn't make sense to not have that restriction. Because if you're not following the dictates of your deity, why are they granting you magic? It doesn't make any sense. Well, are there other reasons? Well, there's the Great Wheel. The Great Wheel is a cosmology that is set up to reflect the alignment axis, where in the center you have the material plane and a few other planes, but around the outside of the wheel you have good planes, lawful planes, evil planes, chaotic planes, and it goes around in a circle where you've got a pure good plane, and then you've got a lawful good plane, and then you have a pure lawful plane, and so on. And by having your character behave a certain way, they qualified to have a certain alignment, which means that they were directly tied to the outer planes and to the deities that lived in those outer planes. But what if you're not playing in a setting that uses the Great Wheel? What if you're playing in a setting that doesn't have that type of tangible connection to the morality of your characters? Many people will say that it is completely unnecessary to track alignment when you don't have those planes as a part of your campaign. But of course, the most obvious and most important reason why we don't really use alignments in role-playing games very often anymore is because a lot of us just can't agree on what it means to be good or evil. You could say a lot about our society today simply by the fact that we argue so much about what it means to be a good person. When these rules were released, I don't think we had nearly as many such arguments. But what if someone at your table is not neutral good? What if they're lawful good? What if they think that law and good are the same thing? This creates arguments. And if the game master has a different opinion from everybody else at the table, that creates even more problems because they're going to try to enforce things on all of the people playing at that table. And this just causes a lot of tension. There are a lot of benefits to tracking alignment. there are a lot of benefits to tracking how closely your behavior aligns with societal norms or with the deities. So what if there was a system that grants those benefits without creating these type of arguments? Well, I came across a very interesting system in a book recently. I can go ahead and provide a link to that book series down below. But even apart from the setting and the story that it appears in, I'm going to call this system of alignments the spirit signature system. And in this setting, anyone of a sufficiently high level, that is to say level 2 or greater, can automatically detect the spirit signatures of anyone that they look at. Now, that particular feature is not something that I agree should be given to everyone for free, but it creates an interesting dynamic when everyone has it. Now, the spirit signatures do not align with good and evil. They do not align with law and chaos. The spirit signatures come in a couple of different varieties. The first variety are force marks. You will receive a mark of light or dark or shadow, or multiple of those, based on the actions you take. In order to receive a mark of dark, you take selfish decisions, especially decisions that might inconvenience other people in order to benefit yourself. Though if you're taking decisions that benefit yourself disproportionately, you'll still gain a mark of dark, even if it doesn't hurt other people. Conversely, a mark of light is granted to you if you make decisions that disproportionately benefit other people rather than yourself. Now, especially decisions that actively harm yourself in order to hurt other people, but even if you're not injured by those decisions, if they disproportionately benefit other people, then you'll gain a mark of light. So, mark of shadow must be some type of balance between light and dark, right? Wrong. This is something that is very surprising to many people who read the book series, and that is that the mark of shadow is granted to people who actively oppose the other two forces. If you actively oppose darkness, or if you actively oppose light in order to create a balance of power between these forces, then you are considered to be aligned with shadow, and you can gain a mark of shadow. It is very explicitly described that none of these forces actually represent good and evil. Even though darkness is representative of selfishness, you can actually create really good results for society by focusing on that kind of selfishness. But you can also create really bad results, which is kind of obvious. And with light, you might think that benefiting other people disproportionately is the better thing to do, but we can see in the real world that oftentimes when you disproportionately try to help everyone, you end up creating a system that collapses, or you end up creating a system that kind of, puts everyone on neutral playing field, and that neutral playing field is actually lower than what the average for society used to be. And so light can cause problems as well. But in addition to the force marks, there are also loyalty marks, which means that you can swear loyalty to a sufficiently powerful being, and you will receive a mark on your spirit that other people can see that bears the name of whoever you swore loyalty to. This creates a very dangerous situation for people that have just gained enough power to gain this type of followers. And it also means that anyone who's able to read spirit signatures can very, very immediately tell who is loyal to who, and who is loyal to who, and who might be an enemy or a danger to them. One of the types of loyalty marks that is available, however, is a forsworn mark, which means that if you have sworn loyalty to this person and they did not explicitly release you from service, you can get rid of your loyalty mark to that person, but you will gain a forsworn mark, which marks you as someone who has broken their oaths. You are explicitly marked in your soul as an oath breaker, which means that everyone, everywhere, knows that you are untrustworthy. The third type of spirit signature is a paragon mark. And I don't truly recommend paragon marks for most campaigns, but a paragon mark is a mark that indicates that you have lived your life in such a way that you align with a certain ideal that is not light, dark, or shadow. Maybe you are living your life the way dragons live their lives. You are hoarding your wealth, you are protecting what's yours, you are destroying your enemies, and you are very much like a dragon protecting its hoard. Well, maybe you get a dragon mark. Maybe you exemplify something else. Maybe you are the embodiment of pestilence and disease. Maybe you're something else. The books underline various different animals, but the mark of death or the mark of pestilence or the mark of the dragon could very much indicate other things. And the idea of a paragon mark where someone can look at you and see, reading right off of your spirit signature, the way that you live your life, this is a very interesting thing. And in previous editions of D&D and also in current editions in Pathfinder, there are spells that reveal what someone's alignment is. So if you're using the spirit signature system, maybe those spells simply reveal all of the spirit signatures a person has. Maybe they have a very weak mark of shadow and a very strong mark of darkness, which means that they're very selfish, but they make a point to explicitly undermine other people from time to time. It's not just they cause trouble for those people by accident, they explicitly try to interfere. Or maybe you have a lesser mark of light and also a lesser mark of darkness, which means that you are taking actions that benefit everyone. You're taking actions that benefit large groups of people, but you're disproportionately benefiting yourself. So both marks end up rising. I find that this system is very reminiscent of the Jedi and the Sith with light and dark, because it's based on the many as opposed to the few. It also really underlines that these ideals that we normally think about are not 100% tied with good and evil. And the ability to very quickly detect the alignment or the loyalty of various people, it creates an interesting dynamic in the world where they segregate themselves automatically. Or at least that's what happens in the book. And I believe that any society that's able to do this, even if a small number of people are able to read these spirit signatures, maybe the priests will end up segregating themselves to different groups in society, and people will rely on the priests to identify who is who. It creates a very, very interesting dynamic when you can automatically detect the alignment or morality of various people. And unlike the alignment system, the 3x3 alignment grid, there is no question about good and evil. There is no question about what does it mean to be a good person. Because you're not asking if someone's a good person. You're asking if they have a history of doing things that benefit who benefited from this person's actions and what is their history. And if a person has a very different outlook now than what they did before, well, their spirit signature is going to lag behind a little bit. And so you don't have that immediate change that people can detect with magic. You can only look at their history. I highly recommend that you go ahead and try this out in your game. It doesn't really matter what setting you have. It doesn't matter whether you allow people to immediately detect alignments. But if you describe the factions in your game in terms of light, darkness, and shadow, then you can very quickly gain a feel for who is who without having to worry about the old alignment system that seems to have fallen out of fashion. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you in the next episode. Later. You know, I actually worry about talking through the reasons why the alignment axis is no longer popular. Because the real reason why it's no longer popular is because people have difficulty telling what good and evil really mean.